After way too many years of looking at the Strange Journey Nintendo DS copy on the shelf, I bought Strange Journey Redux for the 3DS. Then, I looked at both copies for multiple years, and it's finally in 2020 that I played and completed the game for my first time ever. I'm pretty sure this review will be pretty long because I have a lot to say. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey released as the fourth mainline installment in the Shin Megami Tensei series. Yes, you heard me correctly, Strange Journey is officially considered as a mainline game even though it isn't numbered. This game released on October 8th, 2009 in Japan for the Nintendo DS and was re-released as Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux on October 26, 2017 for the Nintendo 3DS. For this review, I'm going to talk about Strange Journey's base game, Redux new content, and also give my recommendations at the end of which version you should play. At the end, I will also talk about the ending that I got and give my thoughts on that, but don't worry, I will give the spoilers warning so you can leave before that section if you wish. Before we start, for anyone who watches this review, you'll have a sneak peek of an upcoming video for the YouTube channel. You might remember this Shin Megami Tensei 4 stuff that I'd like to see in Shin Megami Tensei 5 video. Well, I will do a similar video, but using Strange Journey as inspiration for Shin Megami Tensei 5. As always, if you're in that kind of content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already and ring that little bell icon so you don't miss out on the upcoming content all about Atlus and Megaton. Okay, so now let's jump into the review. I'm going to start by talking about the story and premise of this game. A mysterious black hole appeared on Earth, and the various countries around the world, they unite to decide on what they should do about it. There's a massive issue with this other dimension because it keeps getting bigger and bigger as they passes. You, the protagonist, are a professional soldier dispatched by the Joint Project, the government section assigned to the Schwarzschild, the new dimension that I was talking about. You have to investigate this new area that they named the Schwarzschild. Sorry for the pronunciation, it's a word that I literally can't say as a French-speaking person. Once you descend into this new dimension, you and the investigation team quickly realize that this mission is going to take a long time as this dimension is invested by demons and angels. You work in a massive ship, the Red Sprite, alongside with a lot of other crewmen, some of them having a very important role in the story. Jimenez. Jimenez is a reckless man who's initially here for the money. That's the reason why he accepted the mission on the Red Sprite. This man will quickly expand his horizons of thoughts as he meets demons and gets the demon summoning program. He's basically your chaos dude when it comes to the alignment system, which I'm gonna talk about later for this game. Another character is Zelenin. Zelenin is part of, or at least was part of another ship sent to the Schwarzschild by the Joint Project. Her ship was the Elf, but unfortunately the Elf was attacked and destroyed by the demons. Zelenin is one of the few survivors and she's going to be a big help as she joins the Red Sprite's crew. Commander Gore is also a very good character that I liked. Gore is the official commander of the Red Sprite. He gives orders and everyone, or almost everyone in your ship, respects him and look up to him. Archer is a command unit assigned to the Red Sprite by the Joint Project. At first, you might think that he's just going to be an annoying toy, but he quickly became one of my favorite characters as his lack of emotion made for some very funny moments. Strange Journey's plot is all about exploring the unknown. You leave Earth, you try to understand what's going on in a complete unknown dimension, and this is what makes this story so good. Nothing is predictable. The desire to learn more is there, and overall, this story is just enveloped by a bunch of other things that helps makes it an overall extremely enjoyable experience. When you start to make progress in the game, the Schwarzschild expand too much around Earth, and now demons are starting to invade Earth. And that makes for some very interesting moment. You must continue your investigation while the Joint Project keeps you updated about what's going on Earth with the demon invasion, which I will now segue into those other aspects that helps make the story as good as it is. I will start with the gameplay. As I mentioned, you're an elite soldier. You use a very sick suit called the Demonica. This suit is adapted to you as a soldier. It actually does a personality test on you when you first wear it to make sure that it's perfectly suited for your character. As you progress through the game, you'll explore various different sectors, and through those sectors, you will find forma. Those formas are what you need to bring back to the Red Sprite so the scientists inside your ship can transform them into items, equipments, and apps for your Demonica. Apps are another thing that I very much appreciated in this game. There's a bunch of apps in the game, and it's always very exciting when you unlock a new one, since they offer a lot of different advantages that, trust me, you don't want to overlook. Some of the sub apps offer total control over the enemy encounter rate, whether you want to lower it or raise it, which is very fun. More accessibility options is always great. Other apps will protect you from status or damage traps that are present in the various dungeons as well. Some of my favorite apps are the Assignment app. This app gives you a new commander spell during battle. This spell increases significantly the power of your allies. And I gotta be honest, this app saved me multiple times. Another app that I really liked is the Co-op Enhance app. This app allows the main character to enter a co-op attack with one demon who isn't in the same alignment as him. Now would be a good transition to talk about the combat system for Strange Journey. You heard me a few seconds ago, I just talked about the alignment system. Stay tuned, I'll talk about that in just a bit. Now, unlike in Shin Megami Tensei 4, Digital Devil Saga, or Nocturne, Strange Journey doesn't use the press turn combat system. In Strange Journey, the combat system is of course a regular turn-based combat system, but with a twist. The alignment system in the game has a massive importance in combat. As we all know, in SMT games, it is extremely important to exploit enemy weaknesses in battle, and that's not different in Strange Journey. Some demons in the game are chaos, while others are law and others are neutral. When you exploit the weakness of an enemy with the main character, who, for review purposes, let's assume is law aligned. When you exploit the weakness with this main character, all the other law demons on field in battle will do a co-op attack with him and hit the enemy instantly at once. That's right. So this is why it's extremely important to choose your demons carefully while considering your alignment. If you have a demon on field who aren't on the same side as you alignment wise, their spells that enemies are weak to will hit harder, of course, but they won't resolve in a co-op attack, which means it is a lesser spell at the end of the day. Other than that, in combat, you also have access to commander skills that you gain by transforming formas into sub-apps for the Demonica. That was also something that I really enjoyed, that added depth to this very simplistic but well done combat system. The commander skills are exclusive to the Redux version of the game. Stay tuned until the end of this review because I will give a lot of differences from both versions. So if you're here for this reason, you want to stay until the end. Now, I've been talking about the alignment system for a bit, but what is this system exactly, you'll ask? Well, you see, Strange Journey is probably one of the most traditional recent SMT game, but all its simple mechanics, they just work, and that's applicable for the alignment system as well. If you're not familiar with Megaton, in most games, your alignment, whether it's neutral, law, or chaos, will be chosen due to your actions and decisions throughout the game. Demons that you're using, as mentioned previously for Strange Journey, also have an alignment. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about for the gameplay is the difficulty level. I get asked very often about the difficulty level for the games and where to start and such. Now, Strange Journey's most difficult part is completing certain dungeons, which I will talk about later. When it comes to battles and bosses in general, I think it's actually pretty easy in general. Even if you don't have a lot of experience with Megaton as a whole, you shouldn't have too many issues here. That being said, if you think the Minotaur is a big difficulty spike in Shin Megami Tensei 4, well boy, I've got some bad news for you. Ouroboros is a very hard fight that will leave you sweating or crying in the corner of your room. In general, I feel like Strange Journey is extremely fair and well balanced, but there's two difficulty spike, which there's the Ouroboros fight that I just mentioned, and the final boss, if you choose the law ending, is extremely hard as well. Now, enough about the gameplay, let's talk about everything around it, which is also something that we must not neglect. It is extremely important. You already know that from the title of this review, but the atmosphere in Strange Journey is easily a 10 out of 10. Strange Journey's soundtrack is composed by Shoji Meguro, and I have to say, what he had to do with Strange Journey was to capture the feeling of being alone in an unknown territory, and I must say that he did an amazing job. Whenever you explore a new sector, you get a feel for the environment just by hearing the music because, let's be honest, those Nintendo's DS sprites, they don't do much for that. Whether you feel nervous or you're just completely lost, the music feels right at all times. And it's the same thing for the way that dungeons are designed. Speaking of dungeons, I think the best way to describe them is Strange Journey has some of the best dungeons in all of Megaton, and also, arguably, some of the worst. That's right, I had a ton of fun exploring those massive unknown sectors like Sector Carina, for example. Now that being said, some dungeons are very, very problematic, if I can say it that way. Some of them have some very stupid wrapping mechanics where you teleport everywhere. I remember when I was a kid hating the Generation 1 Pokemon Psychic dungeon in Pokemon Red because of the teleporters. But boy, this Strange Journey shit is 100,000 times worse. In Sector Gruss, there is teleporters everywhere. Yes, everywhere. And I'll be honest, that was complete garbage and not fun at all. That being said, it is a short part of the game, and most of the sectors are a ton of fun to explore. Sector Gruss in particular, the one sector that I hated, even though there's those shitty teleporters, there's still a lot of fun to be had because you're gonna meet some of the first bosses that you beat throughout your playthrough of the game in a new form, and that was very refreshing and fun to see. If you don't know already, I actually adore the old school dungeon crawling in Megaton games, and Strange Journey is definitely no exception. I don't know what my deal is, but it's just very addictive to explore every nook and cranny around the sectors, especially when there's hidden doors that lead to treasures every freaking where, just like in Strange Journey. It's just great. You might have guessed it by now, but you progress through the story by completing the explorations of various different sectors and dungeons in Strange Journey. The more you see about a certain sector, the more you learn about the Swargel, which brings you closer to your goal of understanding and eventually leaving this place. This game is extremely rewarding in that aspect. Now, I'm getting ready to give the differences between Strange Journey and Redux. When describing those differences, I'm gonna give some minor spoilers for the games, which I don't think are a deal breaker if you plan on playing the game in the near future, to be honest, but if you want to stay 100% spoilers free, you can leave right now. For the bigger spoilers, I'll give another warning once I get to this. Now, there is a lot of differences actually from Strange Journey and Redux, and I'm gonna be completely honest, in the community, there's various different opinions on Redux, which is supposed to be considered the definitive edition of the game. Again, my first time playing through Strange Journey was playing Redux on my 3DS, so I'm not going to be able to give you an incentive of why I think why people in the community think Strange Journey, the original, is better, but I did a bit of research and I have my ideas. So let's jump right into it. Redux has a lot of improvements on the graphics front. The models for the dungeons, the demons, and character were redone. Again, one of the things that I researched, that I found, is that most people who played the original Strange Journey don't necessarily like the character models for certain of the characters in the game. Personally, for me, who haven't played the original game, I think the models look great, and I think they're alright, so it wasn't an issue for me. But I'm being honest, this is something that people don't necessarily like, the new models, the new design of the game. Now, another complaint that people have with Redux is, while some of the 3DS releases of the DS era add voice acting added to them, it's not the case for Strange Journey Redux. So if you just came out of Devil Survivor Overclocked, for example, and you were happy with the new voice acting, well, I'm sad to say that there is no English voice acting for Redux. Now, in Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux, there is around 30 new demons in the roster, which the roster in the original game is already very big, so Great Edition didn't really notice it as someone who jumped right into Redux. I did notice that there was a lot of demons though. Speaking of new content, in Redux there is a new and completely optional new dungeon, World of Grief. These dungeons give you a look at a new character for Redux, Alex. In this dungeon, you learn a lot more about Alex, and I'll be honest, if you skip this dungeon, you're not missing out on much. You're skipping on Alex, but then again, you're not missing out on much if you skip Alex as a character. But there is also new endings for Redux, and those implies Alex, and you have to beat this World of Grief new dungeon for Redux if you want to experience those new endings. I personally got the Law ending, the original Law ending for my playthrough, but I did watch gameplay and a walkthrough for the new endings, and I have to say, while Alex as a character is not necessarily that great, while World of Grief as a dungeon is not necessarily that great, the new endings are definitely something that you shouldn't underestimate. My favorite thing about Redux is that there's a bunch of minor quality of life and minor additions to the game that makes it, in my opinion, overall a better experience. I'm going to list a bunch of quality of life improvements, but I'm going to be honest, there's a bunch more that I'm not even going to talk about today. Some of them are, there's a bunch of new sub-apps, so we talked about the apps before. Well, there's a bunch of new ones in the game. There's now free healing at your base, so whenever you go back to the red sprite, you can heal for free. And the first game, you had to pay Maka for that. I'm sure that wasn't a big issue since I had way too much Maka most of the time during my playthrough. You can now carry 18 demons at the same time at some point during your playthrough instead of 12 from the original game, so that's a cool addition. I mentioned some of my favorite apps. Well, I realized that commander skills that I talked about before are new for the Redux version of the game, which is pretty cool. I mean, during your playthrough, you have your regular spells, but as the commander of your team, you do have commander skills, which are special skills that you can only do at a certain number of turns, which is something that I really liked. It's new for Redux, so hey, if you want to experience those type of skills and additional combat mechanics, you have to play Redux. They also added some beautiful animated art during cutscenes that were not in the original game. That's also a pretty cool addition. There's a lot of different opinions in the Megaton community when it comes to this edition. The difficulty level. There is added difficulty options for Redux as well. So if you want to enjoy the story and play through the dungeons with the lowest difficulty possible, it is now possible. So I would say if you just want to experience the story, you're a fan of Megaton stories, but you're not really good, or you don't want to grind, or you don't want to think while you're fighting, you just want to rush through battles, I mean, there's an easy mode. It's great. Now, for you Megaton veterans, if you're not happy with this mode, you just don't use it and play on normal or hard. Please don't complain about it. Okay, so that's pretty much it when it comes to the added content that I wanted to talk about for Redux. So personally, I would recommend Redux. I would also recommend the first game. I mean, you're in for a treat where it doesn't really matter the version that you're playing, in my opinion. Now, as I mentioned before, now is the time to talk straight spoilers for just a bit. I don't think those spoilers will ruin your experience of the game if you choose to stay till the end of this video, because I added some filters here and there. There's some things that I want to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about because I feel like even if I say that those are spoilers, if you listen to it, your experience will be ruined. So I don't think that the spoilers that I'm going to talk about are too problematic, but if you want to avoid everything, now's the time to leave. So thank you all so much for watching if you're leaving right now. Let's jump right in. As I mentioned before, Jimenez is chaos, while Zelenin is law. At a certain point in the story, Jimenez gets fused with a demon, and that changes him completely. Actually, it brings forward his real inner self. At first, I didn't really care for Jimenez, but after that happened, I started to feel for the guy. It brings up some very interesting elements about humanity in general and compares demons to angels very often, which made for some very, very, very intriguing moments. When it comes to Zelenin, there's also some very surprising moments. I'd say some even more surprising and interesting moments than with Jimenez. That's right, as I mentioned, Zelenin is law, and at a certain point, she's gonna transform into an angel, which is gonna completely change what's gonna happen next for your story. I'm not spoiling more, but it makes for some amazing moments, and it makes you think about the decisions that you chose, which makes the story just so much better when it happens, in my opinion, because you get all mixed up in your feelings as the player. Now, at a certain point in the game, you realize that there's another bunch of humans in the Swordle, Jack's squad. After infiltrating their base, you have to take one of the best choices in all of Megaton. It is a decision that wasn't easy to do for me, and from what I've seen online, there's a big impact. That's a point in the story that your choice really matters. And I'm not spoiling this one for you. It's just too good. In my playthrough of the game, I ended up with the original law ending, not the new one. This ending has to be one of the best law endings in all of Megaton. Everyone is basically possessed by the Lord, and it made me question some of my choices for sure. Even when Zelenin changes into an angel, that's some part during the game that I was like, oh my god, did I do the right choice? And for me, when that happens while playing a game, That's because there's a good twist. So yeah, highly recommend the law ending if that's what you'd like to experience. I mean, it happened a lot of times where I was thinking back about what Jimenez said about certain things, which once again made me really uncertain about my choices, and it was great. Everything about Strange Journey is extremely well done and as unpredictable as ever. And that's what I like the most about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you haven't already, I strongly recommend playing Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey for a very unique and entertaining gaming experience. Thank you all so much for watching.